So this is the Trauma and Expressive Arts Synthesis map. And I've chosen to do this map in this way because there's something wonderful about being able to talk. And I've had the experience of talking and expressing myself via voice memos throughout the year that have been really important and impactful. So here is the map. Start with yourself, the clinician. In order to do this work, we, the counselor, must start from a place of rooted, spacious grounding. Our capacity to hold space for our clients is directly related to our capacity to hold space for our own emotions, mental states, and personal trauma. Before you may proceed, you must do your own work. This is not to say you must be fully healed. I might argue that that is an illusion of safety. But rather, it is to say that you must have visited the darkest parts of you and found safety, compassion, and empathy for your whole human self. This matters. A client who has suffered great pain and loss will not feel safe to explore their dark with you. Or if they do, and you are not prepared, you can harm them and yourself. Once you have your own tools and resources, then you can proceed. A few tools to have in your backpack as you move through this work. Bring a multimodal approach. Different modalities may be more supportive to your clients than others. Get to know your client and watch how they respond. Is it visual art that lights them up? Music and rhythm like drumming and singing? Do they come alive through movement and dance? How about writing, storytelling, play, and silence? Labyrinth walking, meditation, yoga. What is it that allows your client to express themselves? Find one or many approaches that suit your client and dive in. Or rather, you might dip your toe. An important consideration is the container for your client. Different examples might be more structure, smaller container, to less structure, larger container. A small sheet of paper and a pen versus a large sheet and paint. A song with predictable melody and gentle beat, or a song full of surprise and exploration. A prompt, I feel, I am, I know, or write about this moment. There are many ways to form a container. Generally, one would start small and grow as the trust and rapport grows. A container helps the client and the clinician feel supported. Another note, be mindful of your own body language and prosody. The way that the tone of your voice, the shape of your body, the facial expressions that you make, all are impactful in this work. Offer the client choice. Remind them that they have the power to go wherever they choose, and you, as the clinician, are there for attunement, safe witnessing, co-regulation, and support for pacing and containment. If a client goes into a space of overwhelm, bring them back using your own regulated self as a guide. Remind them of the present moment. Tap into their senses and body if that is supportive. Perhaps a few deep breaths might feel grounding. Under no circumstances shall you abandon your client here. Stay present and grounded. Determine if the experience is indeed overwhelming or if it's just uncomfortable to be in. Are they dissociating, panicking, losing reality, or being re traumatized? Have they left the present moment and no longer feel safe? There is a difference between feeling rage in the present due to a past experience and feeling overwhelmed by rage far away. Trust your intuition. Check in with your client. Check in with yourself. Stay if it is safe and meaningful. Bring your client to a sense of reestablishing safety if it is not. Consult with a supervisor. Continue to work through your own patterns. Seek out training and evidence-based practices to inform your work. Treat each client as if they are their own human, because they most certainly are. One person who had a house fire may react very different than someone else. One key factor in this difference is the level of support each person received during, before, and after these events. Someone with more support is likely to have higher levels of resiliency, though this may not always be the case. Moral of the story is not to make assumptions, but to ask how a situation has impacted your client. Meet them where they are and match their emotions when relevant. Point out discrepancies gently. Empathic confrontation might come much later once trust is established. The imagination and creativity can be harmed through trauma. It could be difficult for a client to imagine an alternate future or a time where they may feel free or safe. Expressive arts may be a framework that can build access to creativity and imagination and bring hope to clients. You would begin with those regulating and grounding activities or more structured containers first. One that has been pivotal for me in my work is the breath mapping through drawing. You invite the client to witness their breath and then follow their breath through mark making on paper. This is very regulating because you can see your breath drawn out, the internal made external. It may not work for everyone, but I have found great use in it. Box breathing and humming, though not expressly expressive arts, are two others I have found regulating. A somatic technique from Andrea Olson via Sam Stone, where one squeezes each part of the body gently, then adds pressure points and lightly brushes the skin, as well as gyrokinesis, as taught by Rebecca Quinn, Marianne Adams, and Lori Atkins, are other ways of regulating by tapping into the vagus nerve and somatic bodily sensations, connecting the body and breath to the here and now. An offshoot of the Bonnie method of guided imagery and music taught by Kathy McKinney has been another helpful modality in resourcing. This requires level run training, which I have to conduct, but if you're interested, I recommend. The short of it is that you ask your client to imagine a comfortable space. They describe it to you in vivid detail, and you ask follow-up questions like, what do you feel like here? And what sounds do you hear? Then you guide your client into relaxation while playing classical music that is highly structured. You then describe the comfortable place back to them, draw them back into the space, and have them draw a mandala while the music continues. Once they're done, you process together. This can be a space that you then return to for moments of overwhelm to create grounding. Each of those elements is a small container, from the highly structured music to the client-centered guided meditation to the mandala, which is a container in and of itself. I first learned of a similar concept through exposure to EMDR, which requires significant training, but the idea remains. Resourcing is important when exploring trauma in order to have these safe, grounding elements to return to. Another important concept on the journey of trauma and expressive arts therapy is bottom-up versus top-down processing. Top-down might look like talk therapy or meaning making into expression. Bottom-up engages the senses and starts almost from a de-centered perspective. By de-centered, I mean that the issue or pain or trauma is not the immediate center. An example of this might be writing down your frustration and then folding it up, setting it aside, and collaging with the prompt of notice your feet. Perhaps the frustration comes up, but starting with the bottom, say noticing the feet, and moving up, say collaging your emotional experience, might lend to meaning making, related or not. But it certainly offers a sensorial practice over an intellectual one. This bottom-up processing also aligns with the expressive arts continuum, that is, facilitating therapy and healing starting at kinesthetic and sensory, moving to perceptual and affective or emotional expression and processing, to cognitive and symbolic narratives and abstract thought. This is important because, as Bessel van der Kolk mentions, the body keeps the score in trauma. When trauma occurs, the amygdala fires and stress floods the body. The prefrontal cortex can go offline, and your body is in fight, flight, freeze, fawn, or shutdown. This can lead to a disconnection from one's body because it no longer feels safe. Bottom-up processing gets in touch with these bodily sensations and builds resiliency with staying with the body and training the body's nervous system to return to the zone of tolerance or regulation. Kathy Malchiotti follows the three-phase model. The first phase, stabilization and safety. Second, trauma processing when the client is ready. And third, integration and reconstruction. We discussed at length finding safety and why it is important with working with folks who are dealing with trauma. We talked about processing and returning to safety when necessary, having a container, and working with multimodal approaches in a bottom-up way. Integrating and reconstructing might look like using one's imagination and creativity to externalize internal experiences, provide symbolic distance from the trauma, organize fragmented memories, build coherent narratives, and come back home to one's body and mind as a safe space. Staying with your client on this journey, being with them, is crucial to the expressive arts therapeutic process. Kathy Malchiotti also uses a framework of four main functions of expressive arts therapy: self-regulation, co-regulation, exploration, and restoration. Self-regulation is the most basic function. It might look like physiological regulation, slowing the heart rate, deepening the breath, and calming the senses. Co-regulation highlights that healing takes place in context of a relationship, Attunement and synchrony support healing, as does a positive attachment. An example might be drawing together or mirroring one another. Exploration leads to expression of emotion and thoughts. Exploring those modalities of expressive arts therapy can bring illumination by feeling their own selves differently than cognitively. Nonverbal exploration can be a pathway to relieving pain from trauma. It does not have to be verbally articulated to move a client from a space of fragmentation to a space of wholeness. Restoration is the ultimate goal, to come back to oneself, to recover wholeness by being well, socially engaged, finding curiosity and playfulness. The imagination can help reframe the trauma through restoration. Being comfortable in the here and now can bring a sense of peace, which feels healing and can be found through expressive arts therapy. An important consideration is the cultural and social humility necessary to maintain when working with clients. Cultural appropriation might look like using mandalas or dream catchers without bringing the cultural traditions forward or honoring where they came from. It is the truth that these modalities, art, dance, movement, song, silence, have been used for millennia, and we know that these are healing. And we must respect and honor where these traditions are coming from. Also, back to the Bonnie method example, check in with your clients about the use of classical music. Someone might have negative cultural experiences with that. Likewise, ask your clients what feels resonant for them. Certain social and cultural experiences and expectations may be different, so it might not make sense to drum with one client when it makes sense to drum with another. Ultimately, be respectful of where these approaches come from and how to stay ethical in working with a wide range of clients. Learn your own biases and cultural beliefs. This ties it back to the start. The journey of using expressive arts therapy is beautiful and complex. It requires consistency and flexibility. While many topics were explored in this map, many more exist, and the map is ever unfolding. Using expressive arts in trauma work is meaningful, and it allows for our clients to find a sense of self-expression that otherwise might not have been accessible. This map provides a good starting place. Thank you to Dr. Biddle for lighting a lantern for us to begin and being a steady source of light. Thanks to Kathy McKinney, Sam Stone, Lori Atkins, Rebecca Quinn, Marian Adams, Kathy Malchiotti, Bessel Vanderkolk, Andrea Olson, and many others for inspiring my journey in this work. Best of luck, stay grounded, trust yourself. All my love, Rachel.